Well, hello everyone, and I think we'll just get started. And if folks want to come in late, that's no problem at all. I just want to welcome you to the Canadian Agricultural Safety Association's webinar, From Dealership to the Road, Safe Transport of Agricultural Equipment. My name is Robin Anderson. I am the Director of Programs and Communications at the Canadian Agricultural Safety Association, and I am so pleased today to be joined by three experts in their field. I'll give you a quick introduction. And first up, we have Kevin Milligan. He is the Safety Advisor at the Motor Safety Association of Saskatchewan. He serves as a Senior Safety Consultant, a role that he has held since 2013. Bringing extensive industry experience to the team, Kevin previously spent his career working within the mining and oil and gas sectors. Alongside Kevin, we have Darren. And Darren Height is the Health and Safety Coordinator for the Mazergroup, a company with 18 locations across Manitoba and Southeast Saskatchewan and approximately 450 employees. Based in Brandon, Manitoba, Darren has held this role for almost 5 years as the organization's sole dedicated safety professional, overseeing all aspects of workplace safety across all locations. He holds his Canadian Registered Safety Technician and a Certified Ergonomic Specialist designation. And alongside those two fellows, we have Ryan Luggs, and he's a Canadian Registered Safety Professional based out of Saskatoon. Rylan has over 15 years of experience in workplace health and safety, currently employed as a health and safety manager with Redhead Equipment, a leading agriculture and heavy equipment dealership in Saskatchewan. So welcome to you three, and thank you so very much for being here. Really appreciate your time and your energy on this August morning. So it's so good to see you both, all three of you. So I thought maybe we could just dive right into the questions. But of course, folks, if you have questions, please throw it in the chat, and we'll be able to ask our experts, if your questions as we proceed through this hour together. So Rylan and Darren, I know you work with new equipment every day. So how has today's equipment changed, and what new transportation challenges come with that new equipment?
Yeah, I'm sure Darren agreed. The biggest change in the last decade or so has just been the sheer size of equipment. Has created a lot of challenges. Today's combines, tractors, both the height and the width of these machines has created challenges in transporting that equipment from the dealer to the farmer, or from the farmer to the dealer. That's the biggest challenge, is ensuring that your height and width and weight isn't going to create problems on the roadways.
Yeah, I think like Rylan said would be pretty accurate, and like that does create some specific challenges, especially trying to move that equipment with the weight of it, and trying to keep within compliance of the truck and trailer that's hauling it as well, has definitely created some challenges.
So would you say that those challenges are mostly on, paved highways or maybe secondary grid roads? Or I guess that's a very Saskatchewan term. I should say gravel roads. That's more inclusive across the country. But secondary gravel or secondary highways, or even things like, I think about situations where we might have rail crossings, where that might become a bit of a challenge, especially with these very large headers or things like that. Maybe you could just maybe speak about, very specific challenges around, if the road infrastructure that was probably built, 50, 60, 70, even or longer years ago. Is there any like very specific challenges with, specific infrastructure?
I don't think so. I think it applies to pretty much any aspect of what you had mentioned. That I think some of them all present some unique challenges just based off of if you're going from, say, a gravel road to a main highway to a secondary route. Some of them will have different restrictions throughout the years as far as what you can have on it from a weight capacity standpoint and the width. But like, I think all in all, I think it would apply across the board to all three areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree with Darren. And we've had challenges come up as well with ensuring that staff, individuals are at the proper license now for to haul certain pieces of equipment because they're so much larger than they have been in the past. Where some smaller implements where you could normally haul, any person with a regular license could haul them with their truck, with their pickup truck or one ton, and now are so heavy that whether the largest size of headers or certain, especially for these land rollers, you need to have a 1A license or a G endorsement on your license to haul it legally, which wasn't a consideration in the past. So some of those things create some challenges for sure.
Yeah, can you think of any examples of some very particular types of equipment or, something you saw for the first time and went, well, okay, this is definitely a challenge, or this is going to change the way we, approach things?
Especially in the last 5 years with the headers increasing in size, which wasn't something that you normally need to have a tractor trailer unit with a semi hauling a header. Normally you'd be able to haul it on a regular header transport trailer with a pickup truck, and then that's now becoming something that's difficult to do. You need to have the maximum sizes. You need to have a proper driver's license to haul something like that. So that's kind of been a recent challenge that's come up.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was driving a couple years ago just up north of Saskatoon between like near the Rostern area, and I saw custom combiners, and they were coming, they were moving, and it was pretty late at night, probably 10 o'clock at night. And those headers were so large, they were actually hauling the headers with the combines. Is that and maybe Kevin could speak to that. If is that kind of common practice now? We're seeing more of that kind of a transportation to kind of mitigate that issue of just being such large pieces of equipment. Oh, I'm so sorry, Kevin. We can't quite hear you. It's okay. No worries. That is absolutely no worries. You know what? That's okay. We'll let you maybe change your microphone around, and we can just move on to the next question. We come back to you, so don't worry about that. No problem at all. And so maybe Darren, can you maybe talk about when you're delivering equipment to customers, what are the biggest safety considerations that you have to really think about?
I think for us, just because of us having the fleet of trucks that we do for picking up equipment and the sheer area that we cover, I'd say it's depending where the equipment's being picked up, whether it's in the farmer's field or on the roadside or in the farmer's yard, if there's direct traffic around it when it's being picked up, as well as is the equipment operational when we're picking it up? Because if it's not operational, it's going to definitely create more challenges for us trying to get it onto the trailer itself. And then not only that, but like the infrastructure to get to where we need to pick it up. Like if the farmer is located south of town and on a grid road, as you call it, some of it might be essentially like not necessarily accessible for our existing equipment. So then that creates some challenges. And then just other things too, like when we're in the farmer's yard or that like there's other people around, potentially animals, dogs. So all those things create some unique challenges for us when we're grabbing the equipment to bring back to our locations.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, Rylan, what would you say to that as well?
Yeah, no, I think Darren definitely hit the nail on the head with that. It's interesting talking with some of our delivery drivers or truck drivers. Animals and especially dogs is something that does come up often, where they do need to phone the farmer and say, "Hey, I'm coming today," and okay, well, yeah, what time are you going to be here? I'll make sure they know their dog, and that has to be dog has to be put away because it could be a danger to our employee going to their farmyard, and we encounter the same things with mechanics as well, going to visit to certain farmyards. It's not that common, but it does happen from time to time. And what Darren had mentioned as well, it's just a lot of farms when they were first first built, they weren't, the size of the equipment was a lot smaller. So certain farm yards aren't necessarily designed to deliver and pick up the size of today's equipment and the size of the truck and trailer that are coming to get it. So we've had situations where we need to load or unload equipment on the roadway outside the farm, just because there isn't room in the farmyard to do that.
Yeah, and so say you'd have to do that. What do you mitigate? How do you mitigate that risk for, maybe perhaps oncoming traffic, that might be coming up to that farmyard?
Yeah, a lot of times in that situation, if it's unforeseen, then we need to get help from the farmer themselves, bring up the truck and just redirect traffic from the roadway. And then whether it's putting out some triangle type reflective pylons and that as well, just to provide that protection for our employee and for the farmer and the equipment that's being moved.
That's interesting. Yeah, and so do you either of you host kind of debriefs or conversations before or after if there is some sort of, kind of unexpected or anticipated, kind of a different circumstance that might cause some sort of, hazardous situation? Is that something you guys tend to do?
I think we do to an extent. If it's something that is a good learning opportunity for all of our locations, by all means, we will discuss it as a group, and then it sort of gets funneled down from, I guess, the Brandon location because that's our home office to our other 18 or 17 locations. The one thing with that too is that it also, depending on the severity of it, and that it might also go to our health and safety committees for them to review and provide some feedback on as well. Or it could be something that's just dealt with our senior management group. It really comes down to what the incident is and how severe it is as to how many people are involved with the debrief of it, essentially.
That's really interesting. We actually have some questions in here from Neil. So, what type of farm equipment is more challenging to transport? Combine, sprayers, air seeders, etc.
I guess for us right now, probably our new combines, and the seeders themselves, or the not the grain carts, probably just because of the sheer size that they're becoming now. They're definitely creating some more challenges. Um, and it also depends too. Like sometimes we'll have to ship the equipment obviously without the header on it and then haul that separately just because of the sheer size of it if it's a new piece of equipment that's being delivered.
Right. Yeah. Ryland, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. Definitely combines the size now, dual wheels and that can create some width issues, and then you have just the size now of grain carts and air seeders is created the
Yeah, that's
challenge.
pretty interesting. And so would you
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, there you are, Kevin. Thank
Okay.
you. So wonderful. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you, Kevin, for, managing that tech glitch. There's always something. So please don't feel, anything bad about that because that's absolutely no problem
Well,
at
we
all.
we just got new computers and I used mine during the Zoom meeting this morning and all systems were go. So,
It's always the
you
way it goes. So thank you so much for doing that. So maybe Kevin, we can hop into some questions for you as well. We do have a question actually that might be actually applicable to you, Kevin, from Kirsten, and the question is, how does licensing work with transporting equipment from province to province? Is that permitted with different provincial highway traffic acts, small highways as opposed to larger highways, rules and regulations?
well, I'm not too up on my federal regulations. I know these two gentlemen here would probably have a little bit more understanding of transporting that equipment from province to province, but being federally regulated, they would have to get permitting across multiple provinces.
Okay. Darren or Ryland, can you speak to that at all?
Like I know since we go into both provinces, if it originates in Manitoba, that's the rules that govern us from a highway traffic act. Even once we get into Saskatchewan, like we'll fall under the road rules, but like from a permitting standpoint, since the load originated in Manitoba, we follow those rules and sort of stay in pace with that. And depending on what it is and what we're transporting, obviously there's other acts and regulations from a federal standpoint that would come into play. Like, so if it was, say, a dangerous good or something like that, that might change what kind of requirements we have. But for the most part, my understanding is that if we originate in Manitoba, we still have to get a permit for Saskatchewan, and we have to have the national safety, say NSB number, I think, on the side of our equipment to identify us for any of our trucks that are over 1 ton or greater in the province of Manitoba. And that's pretty much, that license allows us to operate in both provinces. Am I missing anything with that, Ryland?
No, I think that makes sense. And Kevin had mentioned as well, as soon as you're transporting equipment out of province into other provinces, you're federally regulated as a carrier then at that point. So making sure that you're following all the federal regulations for transportation. And yeah, like Kevin had mentioned, that you have the proper permits in place for where you're traveling, that you know the weight restrictions on the roads that you need to travel on. Definitely is a major consideration.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
interesting. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was just going to add I had some comments for earlier discussion there just around roads and some of the roads that we have around our area, around our lake. Those roads were designed, 50, 60, 70 years ago, and a lot of them aren't, designed to handle the equipment that's on it. So those road bands are vitally important. We had a young lady that was driving out to the lake, and a sprayer had crossed from section to section down a certain part of the roadway, which one did have a ban on it. And she came down that roadway at dusk and rolled her vehicle a couple of times. She was okay, but she hit those ruts, not noticing them or seeing them, and yeah, it causes an accident. So those road bans are important to make sure you understand where they are and when they're in place and follow them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. And a good point, something I would have, not thought to add. So that's really interesting. So maybe Kevin, what are some of the biggest safety risks you see when agricultural equipment is moved on public roads?
One of the biggest thing is just the speed differential. Obviously, going down the harvest time and seeding time, it's you get a lot of that large equipment operating on roadways where you're traveling in a passenger vehicle doing say 90 to 100, and those vehicles are operating at about significantly less speed. So coming up on those that equipment. I see a lot of people braking hard, going down over a rise or down a dip where they see a piece of equipment traveling. So that's one of the bigger things. Passing equipment is another one. People get impatient. They are fairly large pieces of equipment, and a lot of operators will pull over to the side of the road and give you the opportunity to get by. But a lot of the time somebody will take a risk, and I know my years of driving back and forth from Alberta to Saskatchewan, I've had to take evasive action and hit the ditch on a number of occasions because somebody was in my lane coming at me after passing a larger piece of equipment. So those would be the biggest ones that I see, and also securing our loads. That's another one. I've had the unfortunate event. One guy didn't secure one of his boomers on the back of his truck, and it actuated his brake, which basically took his wheels off the roadway, and he hit the ditch at about 110 in a bed truck, which rolled several times and killed both occupants. So yeah, it's securing your loads is another one. My colleague Kyle told me about passing a truck that was on a single lane highway, and his strap was dangling from behind the truck, and it hit the roadway and smashed up into his windshield. And had that been a larger boomer or a larger strap, that could have came right through the windshield and who knows what could happen. But yeah, those are some of the things I see traveling back and forth with farm equipment and those that are transporting farm equipment.
Yeah, and Rylan and Darren, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd say some of the other things that I've seen, like I do travel quite a bit for my job as well. And just if the farmer is moving the equipment from one field to another himself, if they don't have the proper lighting or a hazard sign, because all the new equipment has all the bells and whistles and that for the operator, but some of the older equipment that's still being utilized didn't have those requirements back in the day, so some of it could be missing. And then, as sort of to touch on what Kevin said, just seeing some of the motorists taking unnecessary risks on single lane highways, pulling out to pass because they're impatient and they can't wait for the 5 or 10 minutes to a spot where they can safely pass. And then, like, just even I see this a lot too, is that companies that are hauling equipment on semis and that not using pilot trucks and pilot truck drivers not actually doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're piloting the load all the time.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Rylan, do you have anything to add there?
No, that's touched on most the items there. Just yeah, we often come across where we have to be frequently talking with our drivers to ensure that they're practicing defensive driving actions. And like Kevin had mentioned, sometimes you're taking evasive action, watching out for the driving of others and acting defensively, and it's just the way of the road at some points. So we sometimes as well you'll see where a company's hauling have to be careful about the permit restrictions on whether it's a larger city like Winnipeg or Regina or Saskatoon or Calgary, and driving down certain roadways during certain times of the day where they shouldn't be. We sometimes come across that where you have equipment being delivered to us, and have to remind them, well, you can't take this route at this time. There's a restriction on that. It's rush hour. You can't be hauling an air seeder and a tank down the main freeway during rush hour. So some of those considerations you see from time to time.
Yeah, that's interesting. And just something that you talked about is slow moving vehicles, and they're significantly slower. With the advent of some of this new equipment and like an air seeder, for example, or things like that, you're seeing them, their top speeds are exceeding that slow moving vehicle sign requirement, but they're still not moving maybe as fast as the general motorists are. So can anybody speak to those kind of situations, or are you seeing any issues or surrounding that, or what does that look like?
I've seen it, like I say, I've seen it multiple times driving on the highways where people are coming up on these vehicles and having to take evasive action and brake hard and swerve. And but Ryland's right, the lighting has gotten a lot better. It used to be one blinking light that was on the back of that piece of equipment from the 1940s that didn't have any kind of light to it. But yeah, they've got a lot more lighting on them now, and rotating lights that gets people's attention fairly quickly when they see revolving lights on a highway. So, but yeah, the biggest thing is just that differential in speed. If you're not expecting it and you haven't operated around farm equipment, all of a sudden you come up on that and it's like, yeah, in a quick hurry, you got to take evasive action and brake hard. So
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of the same themes here. It's respect for each other on the roads, slowing down, having patience, giving each other grace as we just try to go about our days, regardless of what we're doing, moving to our fields or to our farms or to dealerships, or just trying to get on with our lives. We have a question from Neil, and I thought maybe this would come up. There have been a few incidents in Saskatoon with overpasses this year. And not necessarily involving farm equipment. Do you actively avoid travel through urban centers, even if it means traveling longer distances? And I know, Rylan, you just touched on, maybe not, obviously not transporting during peak hours and around those kind of, travel bans. But if you would like to speak to that, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly in route planning, that's always a consideration. making sure that you're within the height restrictions for the routes you're going to take. Kevin with Motor Safety recently, they did a very good webinar on transport safety, and especially around heights and some of the instances that we've seen recently with overpasses getting hit. 3 in Saskatoon in the last 6 months kind of thing, and one actually just 2 weeks ago where a grain bin being hauled hit an overpass not too far from place that our office here in Saskatoon. So certainly a consideration and something that needs to be planned for. And definitely we often find ourselves having to take a different route, and it might be a longer route, but we're then within the height restrictions where it's not, you're not going to have an accident or a close call with an overpass or a power line is another big consideration for sure, especially on a farm.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add, Karen? Or sorry, combined your names, Kevin or Darren?
Well, go ahead, Darren.
Go ahead.
Nope, you're up.
Okay. So yeah, like with us and our fleet that we have, our drivers have the flexibility to change the route at any time if they need to. If there was something that they've been noticed that wasn't properly marked on a map, or one of the big things for them too is pre-planning their route, obviously. And I don't know, for those that aren't familiar with around Brandon, there's a 1A, which is an alternate route that'll bring you into Brandon. It's actually not a truck route, but if you ever want to see how many times people have hit the train bridge in Kenmay, you should look it up. I think it's like they're up to 70 times, I think is what it is now. And like semis are ripping the roof right off going underneath this. The signage is there. They've got more than adequate indication that it is not a truck route. They've also provided turnaround lanes on both sides of the overpass or the train bridge, and it still gets hit to this day. And I really don't know what could be done to change that. But it's probably no different than we've had other overpasses in the province hit, and they've been closed down for, one of them was closed for 2.5 years because of the repairs that had to get carried out on it, because it was a semi that was hauling a piece of heavy equipment like a high hoe or whatever, and they didn't have the arm of the high hoe down enough, and they clipped the overpass at 100, and like it pretty much disintegrated it. So it's not just one province or one area. That I think that challenge definitely lies everywhere, and it's up to, a lot of the responsibility does get put onto the person driving the truck and hauling the equipment, but from a logistics standpoint, it's the people that are trying to figure out how to get it there. They need to understand where some of these barriers exist before they send them that way.
Right. Yeah, obviously. And is there a conversation to be had about making sure that we have a lot of, maybe truck drivers that are maybe new to the job or even new to the country, having that conversation about, these types of infrastructure hazards that do exist, as they are going along these routes, and having that conversation is that something that, potentially could be part of that solution, is having those conversations with these folks?
That should be all included in part of their training from the get-go. And a lot of these incidents happen because of lack of preparation, understanding their routes and where they're going. Ryland mentioned power lines; they're getting ripped down all the time too, in the back roads, mostly. Not too many that are being affected on main highways, but in backcountry roads, they're getting ripped down by equipment. But it's planning, understanding the routes you're going to be traveling, and the height restrictions that are along those routes. You can phone, I think it's a 1-800 number, and get or a website. They used to carry the heights of all bridges in the province. So if you're planning a route, having a look at what those height restrictions are and making sure you understand what your equipment's sitting at before you go rolling down the road. But
that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I know from like a trucking standpoint, it's far cheaper for us to plan ahead and say if we need to get hydro lines moved, having Sask Power or Manitoba Hydro come out and actually physically move those lines for us instead of us not thinking anything of it and then clipping one of those wires while we're driving. We're now on the hook for that bill to replace those lines and that infrastructure. So, um, as Kevin said, that planning part is probably the biggest key piece that is needed for moving that equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And you know what, this is the same kind of conversations we have around farm safety, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So, taking that time to do your pre-inspection checks, making sure your equipment's in great shape, shutting down the equipment before you service it. Those are all farm safety kind of one-on-one things. So I really appreciate that idea that, planning really does prevent these strike incidents. So that's really good information. So when you're often, delivering equipment, Rylan and Darren, or helping customers prepare for transport, so what advice are you finding yourselves giving over and over again when it comes to that?
Yeah, so on our end, some of the things that we come across from time to time when we're working with farmers to prepare equipment for pickup, especially is for sprayers, make sure that the tanks are empty before being picked up. That all water and chemicals have been removed from the sprayer. Another thing too that as well we're often reminding customers is that ensure there's no loose items on the equipment. Leave a shovel sitting somewhere on a piece of equipment or anything like that, or it's a chain or and then we'll make sure that our drivers check it over as well, but just to make sure that all loose objects are removed from the equipment before it's being picked up. So those are some of the things that we're asking customers to do before we do pick up items for transport.
Yeah, that's really. Do you have anything to add there, Darren?
Yeah, I think also too, I think from a standpoint of once we've picked up the equipment is making sure that it's properly positioned on the trailer. Just so then that way it balances out the weight, and not only that, but it allows it easier to be secured, making sure any attachments, as Ryland said, are in the proper position as well. And then that all chains and binders are tightened and rechecked after traveling a short distance, because depending on whether we're on a main highway or a gravel road, that little bit of bumping and moving could potentially loosen it or cause some of them to loosen. So it's not a bad thing to stop and recheck them. And then just taking that extra time to making sure that it is properly secured before moving will eliminate potentially a lot of headaches that could come with it if it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes good
That-
sense. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, that's what I would add the most is load securement, making sure that load's secure and you're constantly checking it. Recheck, and also with the center of gravity, depending on the piece of equipment you're hauling, that's going to change that center of gravity. So going down certain roads, you can make a certain corner safely with one piece of equipment, but another piece of equipment is going to have you rolling over into the ditch. So making sure that you understand that piece of equipment's going to be, your truck's going to operate differently with that piece of equipment on the trailer. So having those conversations.
That's really good. That's really good advice, and I'm sure that you might having to be given quite a lot, but obviously not wanting to have people have incidences is great advice, or it's great to give that advice so you prevent those incidents from happening. So Kevin, how should operators prepare when moving oversized equipment at night during harvest or in poor weather?
Well, it's all about visibility. We want to be as visible as possible. We kind of touched on it already with lighting. The improvements in lighting have increased tenfold. But just making sure that we have those lights, the LED lights and the flashing lights that are going to draw attention to us. We're operating at speeds that are safe in those weather conditions that could be could affect us negatively or the individuals traveling around us. somebody trying to come up on a transport truck that's hauling a combine, and he's doing maybe 90 down a 110 kilometer an hour highway. People are going to want to pass this individual, and it's like a wall of water you can't see to pass this guy. So people are taking chances, and if it's on, so just making sure that we're watching that, and that we are fully lit up. Reflectivity, obviously, at night, that goes a long way. We see on all of our rail cars that are going across these intersections, rural intersections, are all lit up now because how many people were killed driving into the side of a train that was going across that intersection. So using that reflectivity, pullover rule, like I said, get out of the way, let people pass, then continue on, and communication. If we do have pilot trucks, making sure that they're operating the way they're supposed to be and not, too far away from the vehicle that they're piloting, and that there is effective communication between those pilot trucks and that operator, just to communicate potential hazards that could be coming down the road. A bigger truck or multiple vehicles in a lineup. Well, multiple vehicles, somebody's going to get itching to get out and get around them all. So just high levels of communication.
Very good. Darren or Ryland, do you have anything to add to that?
I'd say really outside of what Kevin's already said is paying attention to the weather probably is a big factor too, because as you're driving and moving, like you don't know what potentially could happen. So if like a big storm blows in out of nowhere with torrential rain and hail and that, it might mean as the operator hauling it or driving that equipment that you have to pull over. And that's where having those lights and the reflectivity and all that, as Kevin had mentioned, is a very important thing. And like it doesn't apply just to rain too. Like there's also the fog, depending on the time of year that you're potentially moving the equipment and the time of night, and that could potentially add to it. So just paying attention to the weather constantly, I think, would be beneficial besides making sure that you're visible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ryland, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, let's cover it. Yeah, it's traveling at night with visibility does definitely add to the challenges. I guess just making sure that your operators are aware of the route. Have you taken that route before in the daylight? If not, are they aware of hazards along the road as well? Especially if you're moving something wide like a combine with a header attached.
Yeah.
It does happen down gravel roads at night, and is there posts that can be hit, signs, things like that that some of them may not be as visible during the night. Are your workers aware? Are the farm operators aware of the hazards along the road?
Very interesting. And Kevin, it was interesting you talked about pulling over, and if you have to, if the weather's poor. I do remember some of the most hazardous times I've ever driven in the prairies has actually been in dead calm days when there's just a fine amount of snow on the highway and there's no wind blowing that snow, and there's people are transporting equipment and all that snow just sits in the air and you can't see anything. You can see it, you can see out towards the sides of you for miles and miles, but in front of you can't, because it's just as dead calm and it's just creating a complete whiteout. So yeah, really interesting. I definitely have pulled over in those situations as a motorist myself. So having those that awareness and being like, and having that self-reflection of being like, I don't need to get there right this hot second. I can take my time. Safety is more important than powering through maybe in an unsafe situation. So really, really good. So what for Ryland and Darren, what maintenance issues can make equipment unsafe to transport? I know we talked a little bit about that, with especially around the sprayer tanks and things like having shovels or loose items, but what else what could potentially create hazards?
Maintenance wise on our end, the thing we come across the most is flat tires. Especially combine tires and fuel tires, where you have an inner tire on a combine that goes flat. Whether it especially becomes complicated if if it loses air and goes flat during transport, and all of a sudden your load isn't stable on the trailer anymore. So that's definitely the number one maintenance issue that we come across for sure on our end.
What do you do if that happens?
Well, if that happens, then they need to pull over, and we'll have to call in maintenance personnel to deal with it. If they have air on the trailer and they can keep it filled long enough to get somewhere to get that tire fixed. But yeah, it's a lot of times it's pull over where you can. You can get air in the tire to remove, to take the piece of equipment off the trailer to get it fixed on the ground. That's best. But yeah, a lot of times they're having to pull over and get the tire fixed before proceeding.
That's really interesting. Darren, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, that's probably our biggest concern too, is the tires. Like there's other parts of the equipment, like obviously steering and if there's any hydraulic leaks, depending on what's being hauled, that could also create some areas of concern. But like at the end of the day, the tires and moving it onto the flatbed or onto the trailer itself, um, if it does lose the air, it could create some tie down issues as well. So um, it all goes back to planning and load securement, really.
Yeah, really interesting. I would have never thought about, tires being an issue, yeah, that makes a lot of sense when you say it. So, I think it's also really good that you're talking about this for folks that, potentially aren't the ones transporting it, but instead are, the motorists around this equipment, and having some grace and some patience for, that pullovers or those maintenance emergencies. So I do appreciate that quite a lot. So Kevin, what's one thing that surprises people about moving equipment safely that you think everybody should know?
Well, I kind of mentioned that already. Just the physics of the load, how it's going to react when it's in behind you. And that goes from hauling a small utility trailer or hauling a combine down the highway. It's going to react differently behind you. And I've seen a number of incidents where people haven't, you know, figured that out before they've got on the road and ended up in a bad situation. So physics of the load, how it's going to react when you're rolling it down the road. Top heavy, side heavy, loaded, what's your pin weight? And, there's a number of physics that goes along with hauling trailers. So understanding that physics and making sure that you're addressing any potential risks, as well as the permit system. I spend a lot of time in rural areas, and so people don't think that the permit system applies to them, and it affects everybody in that area, in that rural area that are transporting down those roads. So it's important that people understand that it is that system's in place for a reason. So, and it's may not be you that is going to be affected by the ruts that you're making, but it's going to be somebody else, and it could be somebody's son or daughter that's going to, reap the negativity of that event. So understanding that there is a permit system and it's there for a reason, and that we know where to check and get that information on those roadways. So.
Yeah, interesting. Darren, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, like I would think like for us specifically moving from one dealership to another, if we're moving a piece of equipment, just the sheer amount of planning that goes into it, not just from the person hauling it, but like looking at the logistics side of it, like from moving it from say Brandon to Emerald Park. And it's like looking at, well, what time of day should we be sending them? What's the traffic potentially going to be like? Also, too, is do we need to send a pilot vehicle based on the size of the equipment? And like those are creating probably more and more challenges for us right now, is just because of the sheer size of the equipment, and that the driver needs to be aware of all the restrictions and weight requirements and everything, and how much of that onus is put onto the operator that is hauling that equipment, and making sure that they're actually compliant with what we want from a company standpoint to make sure that it's safe to do it in a safe manner as well.
Yeah, really interesting. And Ryland, do you have anything to add to that?
No, yeah, no, it's a good point from Darren there and Kevin as well. Um, yeah, it's like Darren mentioned, not only making sure that so we employ a few drivers that deliver equipment to farmers and pick up equipment, but then like Darren mentioned as well, if you're contracting a delivery company to deliver equipment to a customer uh, or pick something up, just to there is a bit of a responsibility as well to make sure that they have the proper pilot vehicle, that they're you know as much as you can, that they're going to be following the regulations as well. Just even just to ensure that your customer is going to have a good experience when the product is being delivered to them, and that the contractor is somebody that's all ahead is somebody that's going to do everything that within the proper regulations and laws. So yeah, definitely, definitely.
No, it's great. And I think like, even we're talking about transporting, from dealership to farm, but even from farm to field, right? Pre-planning and, making sure that you're following, road bans, things like that. That's really I think important as well. Like, that those kind of rules can be applied across the transportation situation when it comes to farm equipment. So maybe I could ask, maybe Darren, Rylan, and Kevin. So maybe I'll ask you first up, Rylan. Can you give a real world example where something almost went wrong or did go wrong, and what everyone what we could all take and learn from that experience?
Um, I guess not a specific example, but just general. We've had a few instances where um, come across difficult situations created by others on the road. We've talked about this a bit already, whether it's impatience or just, especially at one point in time, traffic or equipment being moved in small town prairies. Most of the public were aware and familiar with that type of situation, right? And had the patience and knew the farmer and you know, were aware of what to do if you were to meet a large piece of equipment moving down the road. But as the demographics change in the prairies and a lot more people are moving away from rural areas and into cities and maybe traveling in a rural area to their lake on vacation, they're not necessarily as well versed as other people have been in the past about what to do if you do need a large piece of farm equipment moving down the road. So we definitely have had to really reiterate with our staff just the importance of driving defensively and actively watching out for others on the road as well as what you're doing. So certainly, yeah, that's something that we come across and deal with.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Rylan. What about you, Darren? Would you have any cautionary tales to share with us?
Yeah, actually, one of our trucks was hauling a piece of equipment from in and around our Steinbach area, and the operator of the semi and trailer did his inspection like he normally would before he started out that day. And while he was on the highway, his bearing actually in one of his rear hubs disintegrated, and it ended up causing the dual wheels on the one side to come loose, and one of them careened into the field that was right beside him. And thankfully, the guy driving has had enough road miles in front of him that he was able to safely bring the truck and trailer to a stop on the side of the road. And we ended up having to call a repair company and service it. And like really from a trucking standpoint and a fleet standpoint, for us, that's probably one of the hardest things to be able to identify because you can't predict when a hub or a bearing is going to disintegrate based off of um, operation of it. Like it could be brand new and it could still fail. Like there's no guarantees that there's not going to be any issues from that. So the one thing is that they actually had learned was is that they kind of figured out after talking to the company that came and replaced it and that it came down to when they had the wheels changed on the truck that someone actually over torqued the wheel lug nuts, which put pressure on the duals, and that's caused the hub and the bearing to fail.
Yeah, that is Yeah, that is definitely something you wouldn't necessarily imagine could be something that could go wrong. Kevin, would you like to? Do you have something to add to that?
Um, Real life tires on the road, we see those all the time. Like Darren saying, having those wheels come off. You hear it mostly about the 401 because multiple people are usually severely injured as a result of coming across those highways. But um, situational awareness for me is just being aware of where we are and what we're doing, especially around harvest time, which is coming up. In and out of the fields, moving equipment, maybe picking up something, transporting it to another, you know, a farmyard or whatever. Being aware of those electrical wires around us. Every year, somebody gets electrocuted and is killed as a result of not being situationally aware and being under fatigue. Spending long hours in the fields and then transporting a piece of equipment down the highway to get started in another field. We're not thinking clearly, right? And it's usually poor lit conditions, right? So we end up in situations that don't always end well. And I can attest to that. I've driven down roads where, sun's setting in front of me there, and I'm looking over in my oil field days. I'm looking over at the rig, and okay, I know I got to turn in a couple of sections and start heading north. And I went down this little dip, came up the little dip, and guess what? It was a T in the road. There's no sign that told me that there was going to be a T in a road. So, pre-planning. Have I driven that route before? I didn't go down the posted route that the rig manager had set up. I took a different route, and as a result, I ended up. I had three choices: a rock pile, a tree line, and a fence line. I put it between the fence line and the tree line, and obviously destroyed the truck. But yeah, it's just being aware of where we are and those potential hazards. For whatever reason, somebody took the sign out and thought that was going to be a good idea. It didn't end well. I was doing 60 kilometers an hour, which was 20 under the posted speed limit. So I was under GPS police as well, so they knew where I was and how fast I was going and where they had to come rescue me. But yeah, it happens. And yeah, I took some ribbon for that for a while as a safety coordinator, and people gave me a hard time on the drilling rigs for a couple of months on wrecking that vehicle. But hey, it happens to everybody. But being
We're
situationally aware.
where none of us are immune to not being injured or making a mistake or being fatigued. I mean, we can always talk about that, but we are not immune, right? So that's why we have
Yep.
to mitigate those hazards, be situationally aware, take frequent breaks, rest well, pre-plan, right? That's how we
Mhm.
could all manage, to prevent these kind of incidences from happening. And obviously we're so glad that you are okay, Kevin. That's the biggest thing, is that you were okay,
Yeah.
right? Equipment can be replaced, but you certainly cannot be. So that's really, thank you for sharing that. I know it's crummy to have to share kind of those situations and instances, but it's good for other people for learning reasons, right? So
Those are
we
the
appreciate that.
those are the stories that stick with me
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
and will with others too. So
Yeah, absolutely, right. And it's a that's why these real life examples are so valuable. I just have a couple more questions, and I just want to let all our attendees know that we will be posting these forums on our YouTube page. So it will be sending out the link as well once we get that up. So thanks so much for attending. We really appreciate you coming. And if you do have any other questions for our expert panelists here, please pop them in the Q&A, and we'll get to them for sure. We still have about 7 minutes left. So I do have a couple more questions, and they're a little more about forward thinking and best wishes for our farmers and folks as we go into harvest, and also for if we are buying any new equipment. So maybe I'll go throw this to Darren first. What questions should farmers be asking when they purchase new equipment to make transporting it safer?
I think they should be looking at, say, something to do with the size and the weight of it. So if they know what the parameters of the equipment are, because then it'll give them an idea as to whether or not they have their own means of transporting it. And also, too, is the trailer that they're potentially using it to haul that equipment adequate enough for what the size of the equipment is, or do they need to make alternate arrangements to get it to their farmyard? And then obviously this can't be stressed enough from like a safety standpoint is like what kind of lighting is on it, what kind of visibility features is there, does it have that slow moving triangle, are they easy to see? And like more and more of the new equipment is coming out with more and more lights on it, so that definitely helps to show that visibility side, but not sure if they don't take the time to understand what the safety features of the equipment are. Definitely can create some challenges. But I think other things too is that tying down the equipment, like some equipment has specific spots and they're indicated as to where you put your chains through, where you put your binders through. So does your equipment have that? Because are you securing it properly to your trailer when you go to transport it? And then not only that, but like they should also be aware of some of the legality when it comes to taking it on the roadway themselves. Um, in the sense that, hey, is it going to be too wide for me to haul this from the dealership here to my farm? And then making sure that they understand that they do have access to the user's manual and that they should take the time to read through it. It's not that they need to potentially read it and memorize it word for word, but they should at least know how to use the index so that they can find something, because a lot of the manuals are now getting to that point where it is saying how you secure it, where you secure it. It has all the dimensions in there. It also has all the safety features as far as how do you activate the hazards, the lights, the beacon, and all that. So all of that stuff definitely would help them understand that equipment before they start using it and moving it.
Really good. That's great. That's that was like a lesson in itself right there, Darren. You gave us like 45 seconds of just like boom, 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 boom. So thank you for that. That was great. Rylan, do you have anything to add to that?
I know, Darren, yeah, definitely hit all the points there. Very, yeah, a lot of what it comes down to is as far as advice to give customers purchasing equipment is, um, rely on expert help for sure. Like if the dealer has delivery services available, maybe that's the best solution. Or if not, is there a carrier that can deliver the piece of equipment for you if it's something you're not comfortable or familiar with transporting? Especially if you don't have the proper equipment, the pilot trucks, the lighting, and that. Lean on the experts to deliver that equipment to your farm. You don't want to be in the news as having hit another overpass in a city, that's for sure. So certainly relying on help from the experts, whether that's the dealer or a transport company.
Yeah, really good advice. Excellent. So, Kevin, I'm going to ask you a question now about kind of forward thinking as we get to harvest season here. If you could give every equipment owner one piece of advice before harvest season begins, what would it be?
Well, taking our time, starting off the day with a conversation in how we're going to operate safely throughout the day. I think those conversations are missing from our farms. Um, Everybody just gets up, puts their boots on, and gets to work. But that's the nature of Saskatchewan businesses. But we need to stop and have those conversations about the potential hazards. So having those safety toolbox meetings with family members. At the end of the day, we want everybody to come home, with all their fingers and toes and legs and arms. And so it's vitally important, that we are taking the time and having those conversations. Darren's right. Those manuals usually end up in a cab somewhere with an inch of dust on them, like the Act and regulations used to. But we need to start reading and understand what that equipment can do and how it can harm us, and what safety features it possesses that are going to keep us safe. And just planning. People burn down combines every year, and it's a lack of planning, right? Having the proper mitigation systems in place thinking about those things in advance.
That's great. Well, I just want to say thank you so very much to all three of you. This was incredible information. I learned actually quite a few things, which was very exciting for me. So I appreciate your time and expertise. And I just want to let everybody know it is Be Grain Safe Week this week. So CASA has a bunch of great information, resources, including how to prevent combine fires, a new resource available on the website. You can just go to begrainsafe.ca or just check out the CASA's homepage as well, and you can navigate to Be Grain Safe. We also have really great information about a rescue that was done on a 19-year-old farmhand out of Alberta, thanks to the Be Grain Safe program and equipment. And so, yeah, we really enjoy bringing this kind of information to you, including how to the transportation of farm equipment from dealership to field and field to farmyard. So thanks so much for attending. We also have another forum coming up in September about rail safety. So if you're interested, please register. We have some really interesting folks coming to speak, including a mother who has lost her daughter in a rail crash. So we would really like to see you there. I would like to say thank you to our panelists once again, and I would like to encourage everyone to have a very wonderful and safe August and harvest. So thanks, everybody, and we will talk again very shortly. Take care.
Hey, guys.
Okay, thank you.